Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Canadian Mortgage Hangout.tv. My name is Scott Dawson. On my left is Scott Dawson. We're also joined by Scott Dawson and Scott Dawson. As you can see, we've replicated. We've been mapping the beard genome, and felt that it was appropriate to get this out there. So, for those of you who haven't been with us before, this is a fun time. We get together, a few of us mortgage brokers across Canada, to chat about goings on in our industry and all the fun things that make up the Canadian mortgage industry. My name actually is Gord McCallum. I'm at First Foundation in Edmonton. I'm joined with Jackson Middleton in Regina, hey, and Rob, the most interesting man in the world, Campbell, from out in Guelph. How are you doing, Rob?
Good. Stay well, my friends.
And Scott Dawson, of course, the bearded wonder.
Good morning, guys. That's
Good
awesome.
You're not quite as hairy as the Ewok with iPhone picture I sent you the other day on Twitter. But now, if you're following us on Twitter, we'd love to hear from you today. We're going to talk a little bit about openness in terms of data, and specifically it's come up recently that the MLS system, there's been a lot of debate about the future of that, a lot of realtors with different opinions on that system, whether or not in fact Competition Bureau looking to force that to become more open, and lots of different and I think good quality arguments on both sides. The realtors have developed that system and own it and seem to be being forced to open it up. At the same time, the consumer may benefit from more openness. So we want to talk a little bit about that and get your thoughts. You can send us your tweets. We're on hashtag CMHTV on Twitter. And you can also follow us live on CanadianMortgageHangout.tv. So send us your comments. We'll be watching them while we talk, and I'd love to hear from you. Other data openness things that we can maybe discuss in the mortgage industry, there's a quasi-monopoly when it comes to transmitting our information from brokers to lenders, and that presents some challenges at times. Gentlemen, what are your general thoughts? I think I'm on the line here with a few Apple fans, and Apple tends to do things a little bit more close to the vest. They everything's proprietary. They don't necessarily support everything, and it's certainly working well for them. Rob, what are your thoughts on data openness?
I'm not going to lie to you, Gord. I was thinking about how good I looked with that beard, and I wasn't even paying attention to you, but I'll try to keep it going. So there's generally two lines. You hit it right on the head of the nail. There's either side of the fence. There's open. You're either an open source kind of person or you're a closed source kind of person. Apple's always been closed source. They want to hold everything close to them and control the pieces. I guess that business model proves well, being that they are the most valuable company in the world. But then with that comes a bit of backlash with open, not being that open, whereas as Google and Google fans, and by the way, I love both. I love Apple for their products, but I also love Google for their openness and just how awesome of a company they are. And if they take over the world, I'm okay with it. Google, I'm okay with it. Save me. But their open source is their open source model. All I can see is Gord laughing, so I can't stop laughing. Their open source model is beneficial because then everybody wins. If everybody's working on the same end result, just making the internet an awesome place and a better place to be, yada yada yada, then it kind of breeds that community, and a lot of people want to contribute more to that. Where it kind of ties into this whole. Did you mention the whole MLS debate? Is that where we're going with this?
I think I wanted to bring it back to that. I mean, in general terms, I think there are two camps. There are those who feel like the information is mine. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to distribute it only as I see fit. And then there are others that say, you know what, it's not really the information that is the commodity. It's that we want to control. It's how you access it, how you interface with it, all the different things you can do with it if we take some of those restrictions off. And the MLS system is a great example because it relates to our industry. for as long as I've been around anyway, it's been a closed system. There's some limitations in terms of the data it collects and how it presents it. Obviously, with the internet, that's changing business models out there, and realtors, and there are now with changes in terms of licensing rules and what realtors are able to do from their business model perspective. The ability to display that information and make it available to as many people as possible and make it as flexible as possible is harder to do in a closed system, I would argue, and that's maybe where the Competition Bureau is going with it. But
well, you know what? Here's a great argument that yes, it's closed information for only the realtor boards. But the debate with let's just talk about the website first, the MLS website, and Scotty and Jackson, put up your hand if you want to jump in here, so I'll stop flapping my gums. But MLS is a privately owned search engine website. So tell me how, if I'm running like a restaurant website, and Jackson owns another restaurant in the same city, and I'm getting mad traffic to my website because people love my food and they want to know more about eating. Oh, okay, let's take a one step back. I don't even own a restaurant. I own like a Yelp or a Restaurantica or something like that where I can rate. I developed the site to rate restaurants. And Jackson has a comparable website, but he's got an in that he would really benefit from the traffic of my website. Now, if Jackson goes to the Competition Bureau and says, "This is crazy. He's got all this traffic on his website. It's a monopoly. I want to put my ad on his website." You can imagine what I'm going to say owning the website to the Competition Bureau. That's tough crap. You're going to have to go build your own audience, get your own database, do all that legwork that I've done over the past 20, 30, 40 years. And do it on your own. Why should I let you? So that's where my big argument with all of this stuff is that for you to be able to list something on somebody else's privately owned website for listings, it's crazy. Now, with the whole public information stuff, I think it's better behind closed doors than it is out in the open, to be quite honest with you, because we're talking about private information of not just the value properties, but the private information having to do with the clients, their information, all of that stuff. I don't get it. I don't understand it. But anyway, I'm kind of lost.
Let me ask you this: do you guys think, because there have been these examples throughout history of like, let's say, operating systems. Microsoft Windows and Microsoft Office had dominant market share, but was restricted in some ways, and people couldn't develop it, third-party applications for it as easily as they'd like, and maybe source code was close to that. And think about, just for 1 second, think about really quickly how much software used to cost. Like if you walked into a store and you wanted to buy a copy of, there's Adobe's still like an example, which is off the charts, ridiculous. But if anything else, it used to be between, you might pay $60 to $200 for a decent piece of software. Now you're buying apps that do all of that stuff for $2 or $1 on your tablet. I would argue that the rate of innovation has picked up with the openness of that I think was initially sort of pioneered by the open source movement, Linux, some of that stuff that opened up computing, and that's the basis of Android now, which started off way behind Apple in terms of its mobile platform, but has caught up and rapidly is developing things quite quickly. Would we benefit in real estate if MLS, or if there was a parallel MLS system maybe that allowed that openness that people are seeking? And maybe it takes a big real estate office to opt out of the MLS system. I mean, could you see a Remax or a LePage or a Century 21 or any of these big Coldwell Banker, any of these guys dropping out of the MLS system and going and building their own parallel universe to play in? You don't think so, Rob?
Not at all. Not at all. I think the stats show it's like high 90s, high 90% for web users to go to MLS to look for properties. If you take yourself out of that mix, you've shot yourself in the foot for 50 or 60% of the buyers out there.
Could they replicate it in parallel? Could they publish?
No, I see that being I see that being more work. I see that being more work for the one more site that the client has to go to find a property. And I don't know that that would benefit them for going out on their own like that.
But Scott, let me ask Scott a question here. I want to know, Scott, what do you think if that information, if somebody built a parallel MLS system and it was driven by, it was kind of the, we're going to do things differently. We believe that, the data wants to be free. It wants to be out there. People want it to be out there. They want it to be available. And we're just going to build the best interface for it, and we're going to make it as ubiquitous as possible. It's going to be on – you can have a real estate listing tattooed on your forehead for all we care. Do you think that that somebody could build that and would the consumer benefit? Would the consumer ultimately have
Well, I mean, as it stands right now, obviously – as a mortgage broker, I'm kind of am a consumer, right? Like we don't have full access to the MLS like a realtor does, right? So that's an important kind of point to make. Would our jobs improve if we were able to have full access to the data? I think
Absolutely.
Obviously, we could it could interface with bringing it back to mortgages. It could interface with our system by Logix to save us a lot of time. I know Jackson's talked about this before as well. Is a lot of time inputting a deal. If we can have the MLS, we're inputting that manually into our system, right? So that could benefit us. But I see where the realtors are going with saying that they want to keep a lot of that information to themselves, right? They built it, they paid for it, it's theirs. So I'm kind of on. I mean, I don't want to say I'm on their side, but I see the reason for wanting to keep it kind of behind a door.
Yeah.
I guess the big thing is I guess, and the reason I think maybe I see is that maybe they're not threatened by it, but there's not wanting to open it up is I guess one big problem our industries have, realtors and even mortgage brokers, is what are we providing as a service? What's our value proposition, if you say, right? And I think the realtors are saying that the MLS, that is their value, that's their proposition, right? And that's the only thing I think maybe a lot of them, that's the only thing they're hanging on to.
Okay.
I'm jumping in here because that's exactly what I think. I think, do I think that the realtors have every right to be proud of the system that they set up? Absolutely. Do I think the Competition Bureau should say, oh yeah, we're going to let these other little wieners come in and take our system over? No, absolutely not. The realtors have done a great job. However, I think that the realtors are honestly, now, sorry if this sounds a little too bold, but I think that the realtors are scared of change. They protect the information that they have. They've done business for 30 years collecting the information, and what they do is they go, oh, this is the information, we've got this, you sign a contract to deal with me and I'll give you this information. Sorry, information is free. I mean, there's nothing that any of us can't go and find. We could look at land titles. We could go and talk to the neighbor if we want to buy somebody's house.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that is so much more readily available. What realtors need to do is they need to start creating services, their value proposition in their business. But they don't. They're like these web companies who free video. So you go to you click on the link, you got to enter your email, and they'll email you a free video. That's not free. It's cost me my email. Don't lie to me. And that drives me crazy. These marketing companies that do this. It's kind of like, stop it. That's not the way it's done. So
in the background, Rob and Scott and I are all busily deleting the forms we have for our ebooks.
No, I don't do the.
No, I don't either. We don't do opt-in like that. But.
Sorry, Rob.
No, you want it? Anything on my website? Yeah, you want it? You can download it.
I hear Greg Williamson twitching. We've got.
So that wasn't who I was referring to, but you're right. He does that.
Or Doran, maybe.
Okay, well, hold on. There is something. I'm not coming to those gentlemen's defense, but I will put up my hand and say there is that aspect of marketing where it might be a freemium model, right? So the word freemium being create tons of value, tons of free information, free as to what Jackson's saying, no email address, no what was your birth date, what was your weight when you got married, what's the, how long is the pinky finger of your firstborn child, none of that stuff. Yeah. Just free information. Hey, if you want to step it up a notch and you'd like me to send you the mega load of information, then you got to play in my court. So I agree with what Jackson's saying is that you know, there comes a time, especially in this day and age, where information is so readily available that it's everywhere for free. So I agree with the sense that you can't be complacent in holding that little black book anymore. Even talking to us, you know, brokers, your value has to be in the transparency and the professionalism and also the experience that you bring to the table. So yes, you're right. For someone to call you and say, hey, I'm thinking about selling my home, but I want to know what it's worth. You can go anywhere and do that. You can get that. But what you can't do is you can't protect yourself against, if we're talking about buying a home, you cannot protect yourself against what you don't know. And dealing with someone who's a professional that does it every single day, 24 hours, well, 16 hours a day, 360 days a year. We'll exclude a couple of golf days. That's a shot at you, Scotty.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you know what? If you have a toothache, right? If you have a toothache and your tooth is rotting out of your mouth, you're not going to go to your general physician, your family doctor, and go, man, my head's really sore. I don't know what to do about this tooth. You're going to go see the specialist, right? So it's the same thing except on a mega level. Buying a home is not an easy task. It's not as easy as some people make it seem. So that's all I got to say.
And selling can work really well in a really strong market. You can, there are people who've had success selling privately, and good on them. I think, but like the old saying goes, even a turkey can fly in a hurricane, right? So it doesn't make you a real estate expert if you sell your house in a market that's on fire. I think, guys, I want to draw it back to this MLS discussion. Rob and Scott, you touched on the main point. Hey, the realtors built it. They should be entitled to do what they want with it. Maybe the debate is, do they have the right to do what they want with it, but are they doing the right thing with it? And I think I would argue, and Jackson made this point too, data is open, the information wants to be free, the consumer is demanding it, people want it. I think the Competition Bureau is kind of going, hey guys, wake up. If you're not going to do this yourselves, we're going to do it for you, which, I, as a free liberty kind of a person, I have a bit of a problem with that. But on the other hand, I think, look, it's fair to debate the business model. Is it the data that's the valuable thing there, or is it what you do with the data, right? And there was once upon a time, I don't want to draw a religion into this, but historically speaking, there was a time when only the priests who could speak Hebrew and Greek knew how to read the Bible, right? And they held that information, they held that power. That was their claim to fame. That was their way of making sure they were at the top of the pecking order, so that the layperson couldn't get that information unless it was through them. We all know how that turned out, right? It didn't work out very well for them in the end. And at the end of the day, people wanted the information, and the printing press, of all things, started to make it available to people in ways that they could access themselves. And it exploded in popularity, and books and everything else as a result. But I think people want that information. I think ultimately people are going to get that information. It's going to be who's willing to deliver it to them that wins. And I'm really interested to see how this evolves, because I think there's a great opportunity for the realtors in this to take what they've already got and make it better and make it more accessible and make it more available, and not fear the change that they seem to be fearing. And granted, that's an overgeneralization. I know there's lots of different camps in that whole industry. There are people who are like, yeah, let's open it up. It's not a big deal. Let's focus on delivering quality service off of that back end. And then there are others who want to hold tight and take it with them to the grave. So it'll be interesting to see how they go with that. I think that somebody out there somewhere is actively working to subvert that system and build a parallel open listing service that is accessible to everybody. It's an improvement over the current one. I think if they build it, it's got lots of potential to go places. So
I think I know how this is all gonna. I think I might have an idea of how this will all pan out. MLS is nationwide, yeah. And so is the fact that if you're a realtor in if I don't know how it is out west or whatever, but I know in our area, if you're a realtor in Toronto, you can list, if you've got an aunt's, babysitter's, nephew's, goldfish grower that's selling their home in Windsor, you can list that home.
Yeah.
Right. I think if if anything, what they'll do is, or a great idea, I've had this conversation with a couple of realtors who will remain named, if they stripped it back to inter-board databases and websites, where if I'm in Guelph, I want to look for a home in Guelph, I'm using the Guelph board's website, right? And if there's a Toronto realtor that wants to list the home in Guelph, it'll only show up in the Guelph board's MLS for the city. It won't show up in Toronto. You know what I mean? So if you're looking for a home, if I'm looking for a home in Alberta, in Calgary, I can't just go to the MLS carte blanche website. I've got to go into the Calgary website. Maybe the access is given to me from a realtor. And
it's gonna go that way.
See, this is interesting.
I think that's a step backwards.
I'll jump in on this. I'm a huge, obviously, you know, I'm a huge online techie, information, internet. I love it, right? When I'm buying a house, and I've bought and flipped and sold, you know, 4 up to this point. I don't look on personally, and this is me as a consumer, I don't look on the MLS for a home. I call the realtor that I've worked with, that I've built a relationship with over the past 4 years, or going forward, maybe someone different that's local to my area, and that's who I call. I call the specialist. You know, I'm not searching. I'm not going to spend that time searching online or wherever. And that's me personally. I don't do it.
And that's why I think that's why there's always going to be a role. There's always going to be a role for a professional in that space.
Exactly. I mean, I see the value, right? I see the value of a professional and the service that they provide. It can be for anything. I mean, whether I'm booking, and if I'm booking a holiday or something like that, I'm calling a travel agent that I've worked with and that I know and recommend. I'm not searching online for something.
Guys, how much of this hesitation to open things up, or how much of this resistance coming from the MLS people is due to sunk costs? Like, in accounting, they teach you that, you know, it's a bad idea to make decisions based on money you've spent in the past, because what ends up happening is you just end up you chase your dollar, you spend more good dollars after a bad project. It's better just to cut your ties and move forward. And I'm wondering, you know, I grew up. My dad is a realtor. Is it okay to admit that? I might need counseling. But he's a great man, and I remember going to his office though in Saskatoon and walking into the back room there where they had the $60,000 Wang computer that took up half the room and used 8.5-inch floppy disks. They were twice the size of the 5.25-inch floppy disk that everybody else knows. Like, this thing was a beast, and it cost a ton of money. And I remember watching, you know, they had the 1200 baud modems connecting to transfer data back and forth. How much money did the MLS system put into building that database, or those series of databases across the country? And are they holding on to that expense and the romantic notion that, hey, we spent all this time and money and we brought it from zero to where it is? The fact is that I can build a database online, drag and drop right now in about 15 minutes that would be every bit as good as what the MLS does. Are they holding too tightly onto the past? And is that preventing them from moving forward and serving people better? Go ahead, Rob.
It could be. You know what I mean? But I mean, look at every great business that's come up in the ranks has done something that's been so crazy innovative, so way outside of the mainstream of thinking. So you're right. If they came to the table, I'm not saying that that's a bad idea. If they came up with some system that was like, it took the current MLS system and made it look like that mega computer in the back room. Like, if it was something that slick and transparent, good on them. It'll probably bring traffic back to them and increase their value proposition. Scott was talking about, you know, when Scott's looking for a home, he has his realtor that he contacts, and he just uses the good judgment of that realtor and the value and everything. I'd say that Scott's a very, very unique niche of the market. I'd say the average and that's not anything against him. I'm just saying that's
There's definitely different camps there, yeah.
The average person lives in their home until they're stumbling over each other in the home, or emotion sets in and they want to move to a different uppity up neighborhood in the city or whatever. And most people get the paper on the weekend and they open it up and go, "Ooh, honey, that looks nice." Or on the weekend, they go online and they go, "Oh, yeah, MLS," and they start looking, and then they go, "Ooh, that looks nice. That's how the average person does it. They lead with emotion, not money. And the traffic on MLS, I think, solidifies the value that is out there, the need of some online source, a hub for all these properties. But I agree, if all the companies, real estate companies, came together and said, you know what, forget CREA, let's build one that's mutually run by all four companies. We'll say Remax, Royal LePage, Coldwell Banker, Keller Williams, whatever. It's privately owned by them, and they just take that shift right away from CREA, and they open their own website. Then you'll see traffic. But if one company does it on their own, I don't see it.
Well, they could do an open data initiative, right? There's lots of companies that are collaborating, that are competitors in the technology. I think the technology space is where they need to look. I think they need to look at how these companies have started to collaborate. We talked about in the preamble before we went live about how you can log in. If I want to log into just about any site, I can log in with my Facebook credentials or my Google credentials or my Instagram credentials, or maybe soon your Canadian Mortgage Hangout TV credentials. I mean, you've got lots of openness even in terms of authenticating who you are, your identification, and that's about as personal as it gets. So it'll be interesting to see. If I think, Rob, there's been some talk about some of these companies dropping away, getting out of CREA, or some of the local boards and things like that. I'm really curious to see if that goes forward. I think that could be the first shoe to drop, to see, with maybe a parallel system. And you might be onto something. Maybe 3 or 4 of these companies need to get together and go, we're going to drive it. We're going to set the standard. We're going to develop whatever the XML standard is. We're going to open up the API so people can connect to this on the front end, on the back end.
Socialize the hell out of it.
Yeah.
What if tomorrow, all of a sudden tomorrow, MLS is discontinued, the site is completely discontinued, and the day after, a new site comes up called, findmyhome.ca. It's the same site, remodeled, with a social aspect to it, where I go looking for a home and I go, yeah, I like this home on Facebook, or I like this home I'll tweet this home, or whatever. Integrate the social aspects of the space.
Well, and then if they wanted to open it up, to the consumer to list their home themselves online, that'd be fine. It would open up still opportunities for them. Plus, they're making money then off the for sale by owners. Like, there's a real argument to be made. Maybe I should build this. I should stop talking.
You go.
Yeah.
The way I see it is as long as they're trying to protect their information, they'll never be able to be innovative. They're looking at this wrong. They're saying we got to protect what we've built. We put the money into it. It's ours. Yeah, that's right. But information, that's not the value here. The value is how you can allow your people to serve people better. What do we got? We got Daryl Harris here on the hashtag. I don't know if you guys are paying attention. He says the MLS website is not the easiest to use for a consumer. CREA app where GPS locates home for sale nearby pulls from MLS is good. I mean, yeah. I mean, the innovation, the things that could be available could be incredible, but they don't open it up. They don't let people do stuff around it. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't. They're protectionists. It's an old boys club, and they're protecting what they think is theirs rather than embracing the way people are. Rob, it's funny because you're pointing at Scott and saying, Scott's a unique case, and I'm thinking, well, who in their right mind reads the paper? What is he doing paper? I haven't seen one of those things in years. So even your starting point is kind of like, that's ridiculous. I mean, I'm pulling up my iPhone and I'm, so we're all there.
You gotta remember though, there's the boomer generation and the Xers out there that still roll up the paper on a Saturday morning with a coffee and look at it. I'm not saying that it's the way of the future, and I'm not saying that everybody does it, but there still is massive traffic from if there wasn't, they wouldn't print it. It would be a cost that printing companies wouldn't want to take on.
Well, they're getting that way. I've got a brother-in-law in the delivery business of the newspapers. They do the distribution, and those trucks are getting lighter and lighter all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, I like the kid. I've got a a partner in the insurance business that has been in that business for 30 years, and she finally decided to go high tech and bought herself a tablet. It's a piece of slate, and it's got a chisel. So one step at a time. I guess it's not easy for everybody to transition into the high tech world, but I think at the end of the day, it's not the data; it's what you do with it. Like you guys said, Jackson, you made that point. Are they entitled to do what they want with it? Probably. They built it. I don't think it's necessarily right that somebody's telling them what to do with their own system. On the other hand, there's obviously a demand for that transparency and openness. I'd love to see it. I'd love to be able to interface with it. I know it'd be great, like you said, Jackson, to have that some of that pull into our mortgage software. I think we see a big productivity improvement. And then maybe we can talk about data openness with regards to mortgages again. I know we touched on that subject a few weeks back, but in light of the current conversation, maybe that's a discussion to have for next week, because I think there's a lot of opportunity there as well. So, gents, probably a good time to sign off. I know, Scotty, you got to get to the golf course. Robbie, and thanks, Daryl, out in Winnipeg, WPGS Best MTG. That's a handful. Daryl, thanks for your contribution and your questions. Jackson,
I'm just giving a shout out to Mike, who's been talking to me. He's just bought a house in Saskatoon, and he said he watches the MLS very carefully. He figured out exactly what he wanted, and he snapped it up the first day it was listed. So he was one of those consumers that Rob was talking about,
Yeah.
And
information.
Thanks, Mike, for your contribution.
Thanks very much, Mike, and thanks to everybody for our viewers. We love your comments and questions, and we're happy to tackle any suggestions for topics on the next one. And watch us every week, Thursday, same time, same place, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m.
10 p.m.
Where are you? In the Pacific.
A.M. 10 a.m.
10 a.m. out on the left coast. So until next time, I'm Gordon McCallum signing off. Take care.
All right, see you later, guys.
I'm going to make that little Sharon Osbourne heart like this. I don't know how that works. Rob, you're...